And I'm also going to do, got it.
Okay. Let's get live.
There we go. It won't let me do it to YouTube, so we'll just leave it for now.
We're live.
We are live in the group. It
Yes,
worked.
it worked.
Okay, cool. That's so refreshing.
And good news.
Yay!
Welcome everybody to this week's live podcast with Michelle Fuller. I'm always so honored and excited whenever you come on because every single conversation we've had is just like, I don't know, it's just so...
It's warm, buttery toast.
Yes.
Ooh.
That's a really good,
Yeah.
really good analogy. And today's topic is around creating unity and coming together because, and I was mentioning this before we
And
went
the
live.
perfect topic because we're together.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was mentioning this with Michelle just before we went live, that the reason I really liked the topic of today and why I chose it was because in well, we were talking about it on our last episode, and it comes up in a lot of conversations when we talk about the new world that we're creating and
what's
moving
happening
into,
now.
that there's going to be a lot of separation on Earth, and it's kind of like the two worlds split, I've heard. I've heard many different names for it, but it's all about how it's going to split between like 3D and 5D. And as much as I resonate with this, I guess prophecy, if you will, I also feel like we can do some things to ease that. And just because everyone says, oh, there's going to be a two-world split, I think unity still needs to be a really big focus and, kind of just a big thing that we've got to still follow, even though the world's separating, we got to find unity.
Yeah, and
So,
we choose how we experience the world.
yeah.
So if we choose to focus on um bringing people together and seeing the world as united, even though we might have differences in our belief systems, then we can choose unity over separation.
Yeah.
That's what I believe anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think anytime that there's a focus on separation, I usually, and I imagine you two do as well, I'm aware of an energy that feels sort of like there's a hierarchical structure where there's like the superior and the inferior, or however we might want to label.
Yeah.
And that's always a red flag for me because that feels like it's not in alignment with divine will or divine love.
Yeah.
And so I think that this conversation is so amazing. And I always love it too, because I never know what we're going to talk about until like the day of. And I love that so much because usually like the week before, it's like, I wonder what we're going to talk about. I wonder what, and then whenever you tell me, I always love the topic, and I always experience like sort of like divine downloads
Cool.
as it sparks me. And I actually wrote notes this morning of like things that I wanted to like touch on because I was so inspired. So yeah, so I love this topic so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, and just so like if you've tuned in and you're new to our group, because we've got a lot of new people in our group, Juliet usually chooses the topic and she intuits it. So it's whatever comes up for her in the moment. So yeah, that's our process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
So,
I'll just hand the baton to you, Michelle. You've got the notes. So,
okay,
Yes, we
I've
want to
got the
hear
notes.
you.
I literally
Yeah.
have notes. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing that was coming through was questions, two questions to ask. So the first one would be, what is unity? And the second, why do we want it?
Yeah, good
Right?
questions. Mm.
So, I can share sort of my thoughts, and then I don't want to like hog the mic, and
No,
then sort of
don't
pass.
worry, we'll jump in when we're ready.
Okay. So, my definition of unity is oneness that holds space for all aspects of divine individuation. Okay. And I emphasize divine because if I individuate and I'm an axe murderer, that is not divine, right? That is anti life, that is death. So when I'm talking about individuation, I mean I have my thoughts, I have my perspectives, I have my ways of being, my ways of creating, and you have yours. And we do not require each other to reflect back our individuated ways of being. So, like, you're you, I'm me, and we are honoring your individuation, my individuation as fractals of or fragments of unity, oneness, parts of the whole, right? And I'm looking at my notes right now. And
Mhm.
above that, a layer just above that, okay, is the seeing that your individuation and my individuation actually make up the whole in this
Yeah,
realm. Because of the fact that here in this realm, everything is teased apart, right? And it's the contrast that enables us to observe the different parts of oneness, right? It's the contrast itself.
yeah.
Okay, so that's like my definition of unity, and
Mm.
I'll hand the talking stick over.
Yeah, so that's how I see it also.
Okay.
And and that is an understanding that has grown within me recently
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, um, these things were not at the forefront of consciousness in my family or in society or at school or with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never spent any time in my life pondering on this subject. It's not really until I started to become aware of myself and how I operate in the world and how I operate was affecting my family and the people close to me that I
Mm-hmm.
started to really focus on this concept
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't it was like it's not that I was a bad person or that I wasn't interested or anything like that. It just didn't play a factor in my life.
Right.
And so when I became aware and I started to look into it and I started to, as you said earlier, have downloads and information come to me
Mm-hmm.
divinely, and I know it was divinely because they were new concepts that had never been handed to me. They grew organically inside me. They were
Mm-hmm.
things that came to me organically from myself.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
yeah. So and then I started to share them with my kids and with my partner and with people around me. Some people were open to it and were interested and talked about it. Other people thought I was crazy and shut the door
Mm.
in my
Mm-hmm.
face.
Mm-hmm.
Along with not just this concept, but along with a lot of other stuff too. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking, Michelle, this feeling comes up in me that it's like um, the need, like the feeling of importance around us knowing and understanding this concept of
Yes.
unity and
Mm-hmm.
how the concept of unity has been presented to us in the past
Mm-hmm.
through trying to fit in, being popular,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be the same. as other people to fit in with them, like that concept of unity and how it's kind of like skewed off center. It's not really 100% authentic.
Mm.
It's
Right.
born out of a need to
Right.
be like like a survival technique, possibly, because I know that
Mm-hmm.
was for me. If I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't
Yeah.
accepted by my parents, if I felt ostracized by them, then I started to get neglected, things like
Right.
that. So it was a survival technique for me as a child.
Right. Right. So it's like the inversion of
Yeah.
unity via a mimicry of sameness that
Yes.
comes from a survival need. So
Yes.
You see,
there's no opening for achieving unity through individuation,
That's it.
recognizing that we're all aspects of the one, right?
yeah,
Yes. And
Yeah.
having the consciousness and the knowledge that in that individuation that
Mm-hmm.
there is power there, that
mm,
Mm-hmm.
there is great that's it, we have great things to give the whole collective when we celebrate ourselves as individuals, our unique fingerprint as a person, our personality, our the
Mm-hmm.
things that we love, the things that we bring to the table,
mm,
Yeah.
are forgotten because we're too busy trying to fit in or too busy trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
for me, opening that Pandora's box has been a process and been
Mm-hmm.
um it's taken a lot of bravery and
Oh,
courage.
for sure. I love that you said bravery because I was just thinking the words self-empowerment because
Mm,
for you, Claude or Juliet, or for me to sit here and allow myself to individuate without
yeah,
requiring you or anyone else to reflect my individuation back to me and to know that I am still here, that
yeah,
I am still here anyway, and that what and who I am is important, right? And
yes,
meaningful and powerful and purposed. That
yeah,
takes a lot of courage. Yeah.
yeah. Because for a lot of people I'll just speak for my reality. When I was
Hmm.
growing up and my friends and the people that I knew, we were taught that to be accepted and be productive members of society, that we had to offer something,
mm,
that
Hmm.
you had to do
mm,
in order to be loved or in order to
Right.
feel to be valued, that you must
Right.
have something to do and contribute, and that
Hmm.
just being alive and being a person and being who you are wasn't enough.
yeah,
Right. Yes. 100%.
Yeah. And that oh gosh, that concept for me has been like really, I've really had to strip myself back and strip
Hmm.
back everything that I believed,
Hmm.
really go through it with a fine tooth comb. That was my
Hmm.
process. I'm not saying that happens for everybody, but I needed to do that to
Yeah.
uncover for myself, um, that the truth of it, that it
Yeah.
felt real to me,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
that it,
that's been my process as well.
right.
100%. And I mean, I'm still in it like all the
Yeah,
time.
me too.
I'm in it, like deeper layers of it.
Yeah,
And you know, not to make this specifically geared towards women, but because we are all women here,
yeah,
I'm also just thinking about, what you were talking about with like what we have to bring to be loved
yeah,
and how those programs were all like cookie cutter. Like, this is what you need to look like, and this is what you have to act like. And also, if you look like this, or if you be this, or if you do this, then you will receive love. But meanwhile, um, the masculine energy was being interfered with in their own ways. And oh
yes,
my God, the horse never showed where's the white horse? It never
yeah,
showed up. Here I am,
yeah,
I'm being all these things, the cookie cutter Pleasantville,
yeah,
right? Yeah, I'm
yeah.
supposed to
Stepford
be.
wife.
Right.
Yeah.
And Stepford Wives, that's what I was thinking of, not Pleasantville.
Yeah.
And there's no white horse, right?
Yes.
And so then we get pushed back into ourselves to heal all that codependence, which is the nature. Codependence has been, not is, was, past tense here, was the nature of all relating inside of all relationships, whether familial, friendship,
Yeah.
romantic, work, business relationships. It was all codependence. Um,
Yes.
so that's a part of coming into unity, right? Is actually like it's the paradox, it's understanding the nuance, is like healing the codependence so that we can come into unity and more of
Yeah.
an individuated but interdependent
Mm.
way, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, well, unity is everything that you guys have said so far.
Mm.
But what initially came to me when, yeah, when you said that question, what is unity?
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it and I was like, to me, unity is, yes, realizing that you are everyone else.
Mm.
Yes, you are the individualized you, but everyone else is their own version of you. Like, and we're all together as one big consciousness. But that's a bit too trippy. And I feel like, as truthful as that is, in everyday life, it's not always easy to apply. Like, it's not
Huh?
always, I just, if I apply that to my everyday life at work, and I'm thinking that, like, I'm trying to be nice because the customer is really getting on my nerves, I just start tripping out and I get more angry, like it doesn't actually help the situation. So
Yeah.
then I think, well, then I'm like, well, like, how about we move judgment aside? Because I feel like
Mm.
to get to unity is about looking at another person and not judging them because they're different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really big step that we need to start taking as a whole in society, to not judge other people for being different.
Mm.
And it sounds like such a cheesy line, but everyone does it. I do it all the time. I do it every single day. Like, I'll judge someone for, you know, okay, I'm really sorry, Michelle, but this is towards America. There was a there was a guy that
Trust
I just
me,
had.
all good.
I just did a trial shift at a bar, and
Mm.
the manager was American, and I judged him like he just spoke, and I was like, oh, he's American. We do
Right,
it in every way, and you're
right,
exempt
right.
from this, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Disclaimer.
you. I love that so much. I was thinking something similar earlier because I was thinking about this concept, okay? And I was actually thinking about a neighbor, and I sent her love. Angels, please take any of this and transmute it into the cosmos to be dispersed as
Yeah.
love, okay? Because I don't want any like psychic attack energy to be
Yeah.
hitting anybody. But she struggles with like some addiction challenges, and I started thinking about the agreements that we make unconsciously that take us farther away from unity. So if I agree that my neighbor is this or that, insert expletive or
Yeah.
judgment, okay? If I'm agreeing to that, then that is absolutely what I am going to be experiencing from her, right? I
Mm.
mean, this whole reality creation thing is really a
Yep.
bag of dicks. It really is, okay? Because that's how I'm perceiving her, right?
Yes.
And now I'm also fueling that separation consciousness, as opposed to what you're saying, Juliet, is sort of acknowledging my judgment and like not judging it either, right? Because I don't want to separate from myself, right? Because that's what I'm going to do now if I do that. I'm
Yeah,
just going to hold it and I'm going to acknowledge it. And oh, I understand where that comes from, and then just sort of shift to like that. This is why I wear this symbol, the eagle.
Oh,
Shift to
beautiful.
that bird's eye view perspective and just remind myself to experience her as an expression of oneness, of unity. She's her own individuated expression of unity.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to make an agreement around how I'm experiencing her, because now I'm going to be experiencing more of that myself via
Yeah.
that agreement,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So my take on what we're talking about here is like, so I get visuals when things happen, like when information comes in, and we don't walk around with X-ray vision.
Mm.
We don't
Right.
see through the facade that people choose to project into the world. So
Mm-hmm.
when and there's a reason for that, right? We're not seeing through persona because we need to learn the process of not judging and not attaching and not making agreements, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
We need to learn that process. If we had X-ray vision and we could see through the defenses that people put towards us, it would be easy, and we would just be like, oh, I see that person's hurt, so I'm not gonna judge
Right.
that person. I'm not gonna, say that thing to that person because I can see how they're hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we can't see it makes us work for it harder and makes us practice and makes us have to really check ourselves and where we're coming from when we're dealing with someone like that.
Yeah.
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 So that process is this way is hard, and for a reason, because also we don't have X-ray vision, but we do carry around filters with us, our own
Mm-hmm.
filters,
Mm-hmm.
because of our own experiences in our lives. So
Mm-hmm.
we walk into a situation with somebody like that with our own filter,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where, if we have a filter and oh, that's like that person from my past,
Mm.
and that's what happened with that person from my past. So I'm not going there again, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
maybe in this instance, you experienced it that way so that you could give that person that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they needed that. Okay, you got scared. It was horrible for you, but perhaps that person needs a good slap down, or needs, your input into whatever's going on. Maybe that's what, like, we
Yeah.
don't know
We don't
until,
know. Yeah.
yeah,
We don't know.
until we have gone through the process of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can say, if we want to, we can break it down and we can see and we can learn from it in a
Mm-hmm.
way that's expansive,
Mm.
in a way
Yes.
that is conducive to being abundant and bringing abundance into our existence, into our experience for
Yes.
ourselves and for the people that we interact with and are in our
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
feel that's a really
Mm-hmm.
important skill if you
Yeah.
wanna it's it's
It's an
an
intention.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're someone like me who is really like places a strong importance on spirituality and lives by it, but then at the same time does go out into everyday society and has to put up with the crap that goes on every day. Having what
Yeah.
you're saying, that skill to take those filters
To be aware, like,
to
you
yeah,
need
to
to
be
know what your filters are
yeah, to have that
and
skill.
apply that knowledge in the moment. It's so
Mm-hmm.
hard though.
Yeah, it is. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't know. With practice it it happens. I
Yeah,
mean,
yes,
COVID,
100%.
okay, COVID
Yep.
happened 2020. It's now 2024 and I'm still learning that. You're still learning that. And that's when we woke up. And Michelle, did you
Mm-hmm.
wake up before 2020?
Mm-hmm.
Before? Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it's something you've been working on since before then even. So it's always like
Yep.
learning these skills is never gonna come
It's a
quick. It's
lifelong
not as
commitment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but there's this
Yeah. I have a
sorry,
note about this actually. I have a
Yes.
note.
Yes.
I'm just gonna read it because I don't totally remember.
Yep.
Okay, but so what happens if I feel like your unique expression of you harms me in
Yeah.
some way?
Mm.
Yes.
And so, but this is why it's so important that ideally, quotes, everyone is doing the work to deepen self-awareness to ensure that our words and behaviors are self-accountable and not projections, are not codependent. Um, Hang on. Now I feel like I'm doing. Okay. So, because now if I feel like I am in this space of honoring individuation as a part of unity, right? And I'm identifying with that. And this is me and this is how I am. And now I come across you, Juliet, and you're not doing that. Okay. So
Yeah.
now
That's a
there's this,
very
there's
common
this
occurrence.
there's this slippery slope now into victim consciousness. Maybe I'm going to embody the martyr archetype. I'm going to feel really sad about for myself. I'm so amazing. You
Yeah.
suck. And like, before you know it, now I've just made an agreement with that experience, right?
Yeah.
So basically, really what I'm saying is it doesn't matter how you're behaving or how you're behaving or how I'm behaving if the shoe's on the other foot. As what matters is that it serves to focus us back on ourselves,
Yeah.
our empowerment. Who am I? How am I walking here?
Yes.
And the reason that I felt like this was important and I put it in a note is because I feel like the victim consciousness mentality is that was redundant, but it's definitely a slippery slope. And I
Yes.
see I see a lot of it. I see a lot of it like cloaked and hidden too, in
Yes.
different narratives, like new age narratives and things like that. Even where, things like you know, the reason you're experiencing this, you awesome person, is because all the other people are like this.
Yeah.
And I think at a certain part of our path, like those types of ideas might be really useful for people who are like just starting to come into awareness of different concepts and maybe they have really crappy self-worth and really pronounced inner critics. It can be really useful in those instances, but at some point we can start to identify, okay, no, wait a minute, how is this creating separation? How is this a trap? If it's putting me into some sort of martyr archetype or
Yeah.
holier than thou archetype, which it's okay. I mean, there are a lot of traps on the path of awakening. And as far as I'm concerned, they're part of the learning, because like our foot gets caught and then we get to like chew ourselves out and we're like bloody and like dying and but like we learn so much and I see those spaces as initiations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to put another layer onto this because I've got Juliet and I get her perspective on things sometimes. And I also
Hmm.
have a 13-year-old son and I
Yeah,
see how he's relating to the world and he's just becoming a teenager now. Well, he's already a teenager, but like an older teenager.
right.
Um,
Not yet,
yeah,
really.
well, he's 14 next month in June.
Yeah, that's not an old teenager. Okay.
Okay, but anyway, so he's being raised very differently to the way Juliet was because of the consciousness that we have now.
Hmm.
And but one of the constants in raising Juliet and him has been, for me, been very important for them to have their individuality in the
Hmm.
family. So
Hmm.
we are a family unit, but they their individualness was always celebrated.
Hmm.
And with some humor, I must admit, because some of the choices that have been made by their
Right.
individual selves has been, in my opinion, quite funny.
Hmm.
But he, Bryn, has chosen his individual path, um, And with my awareness, the way it is at the moment, I see him choosing to be the cookie cutter person that we've just been talking
Okay.
about with
Yep.
his friends.
Yep.
He has felt that peer pressure and he loves his friends so deeply and so broadly as well. They
Mm-hmm.
bring so much joy to him in his life that
Mm-hmm.
he just wants to be like them. He
Mm-hmm.
just it's never a question in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I have to allow him to experience that because that's his choice and that has how he's chosen to relate to the
Right.
kids that he's friends with. Now,
Right.
Juliet didn't do that. She completely and utterly like just embraced her individual self and celebrated it in her own way. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like on the sidelines going, yes, go girl,
Yeah.
because I loved that. I
Mm-hmm.
felt resonance with that and a kinship with that. Mhm.
Right.
But
Yeah.
with Bryn, he's choosing the opposite. And I
Right.
find it, I worry.
Right.
Yeah. And I get, oh, I want him to have more independence and more of himself and more fiercely
Right.
individuated and, not give up the
Does he
things
like mimic mannerisms and things like that? Like
a
does he
lit,
mimic a little
yeah,
bit? Okay.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And sayings and the
Stains.
way
Yeah,
he
yeah.
dresses and,
Mm-hmm.
like
Right.
he grew up loving AFL, which is a football game here.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all embraced it as a family.
Yeah.
Um, because we didn't really know much about it until he started to become involved in it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's slipping now because his friends are into NRL, which is a completely different game.
Okay.
And I find myself going, oh,
Right.
oh, like he's losing himself and he's not in love with the things that were, from when he was a child and he's changing and he's becoming
Yeah.
more them. And it's like in me,
Right.
challenging me, and I'm having to bring myself down to earth and
Yeah.
allow and watch him and kind
Yeah.
of like ask him questions every now and then, like, is this what you want? Are you sure about this direction for yourself? And things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of continue bringing him back to
To himself.
himself. Yes.
I'm sort of getting like this intuitive hit though that like he wants to, it's like he's trying on different costumes, like other
I get
because
that too.
we all are, right? Like, hello, beautiful source fractals, playing the human role of Claudia and Juliet. It's so nice to
Yeah.
see you, like, and some of us will be more, I think, just generally speaking, individuated and we'll sort of walk that way like our whole lives. And then others of us, we might like want to try on different
Yeah.
costumes, different archetypes, like different like things that are interesting to us or attractive just to like see like what does that feel like,
Yes.
That's and that but he'll move through it. Like he'll um I remember when I was around his age, I had a friend and I loved she had like this really mild accent. And um sometimes I would catch myself sort of like talking like her.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I thought was interesting. So I would sort of like try it on, I think. And sometimes, so my daughter, she's only 10, but she has one friend that she just loves so much, and she's like 2.5 years older. So, whenever they hang out, she talks like her. And she
Yeah.
says, and I will point out, um, just because, I'm not trying to like shame her, but sort of similar to you, Claude, like just bringing awareness, like,
Yeah.
oh, that you sound like her name is Lilia, her friend. You sound like Lilia right now, and but I say it like, happily, and you sound like
Yeah.
Lilia, but
Yeah.
just to sort of shine some light, right? And
Yes.
because absolutely, like, let's not lose ourselves. Let's
Yes.
not lose our individuated source fractal self as we're trying on these other costumes. But I think that, like in the case of your son, and I'm sure it's the same with my daughter, it's just part of like their development and their process,
Yeah.
and they'll come out of it, and they will have a very strong sense of who they truly are through that process of like eating from the buffet. Like, let me try the
Yeah.
potatoes, let me try the strawberries.
Yeah.
So
And I've found that the journey for me as his mum, part of
mhm,
that has been that I need to really turn the mirror back to myself and say, Claude,
mhm,
you've created a framework for your children and your family, based on, good intention, love, all of these great, beautiful, nourishing things. And
mhm,
now it's time for you to trust
Mm.
that you've given them the tools and the love that they need to make their own decisions.
yeah,
And if you don't show that you trust them, how are they ever going to trust themselves?
right,
And so,
yeah,
yeah. So even
yeah,
though I have like, because this energy that I have inside of like, oh,
right,
um, and I didn't have that with Juliet. And my energy
mhm,
around her was like, let's go, girl.
right,
Um,
yeah,
it's kind of like, okay, that's just another experience. Like, don't you can experience it and it can be part of your reality, but it doesn't need to live there.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
mhm,
you can let it pass through and still
mhm,
trust and know that you're raising your son in a way that's going to benefit him in the long run.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's so true. And the fact, like the way they're all so unique and like
Yes.
they're already individuated by how, like, even if you look at Juliet and him, like the contrast there, right? Like that is individuation.
Yes.
I feel like my eldest son, who's Juliet's age, 21. You're 21, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. When's your birthday again? Sorry to segue, but
March 11th on the
March. Okay.
20s.
All right. So happy birthday. Um, couple months late. Um, so I felt like I didn't really know who he was until
Mm,
he was like, I don't know, 18, 19.
mm.
And then the last couple years, I've really seen him emerge.
Yeah, right.
Whereas like my other son and my daughter, uh, very pronounced um energies and
Yeah.
personalities and quirkiness, and not that he always didn't have some quirk too, that runs in the family, but like I didn't know, like, who is he? And
Mm,
now I'm seeing it, and so yeah, like, just, and I always knew, I always trusted and knew that it was just perfect and fine, and I remember even thinking to myself at some time, like, even if it doesn't turn out that he has some really pronounced individuation about him, that's perfect too. That's
yes.
okay too. He's perfect the way he is,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
And when
interesting.
we're on that journey of like, because for me, I'm constantly running scenarios in my head, right? So, what if he gives up AFL? Because that AFL thing has been with him since he was so young.
Right.
And so, and it's a thread in him that has been so giving to him and us
Mhm.
as a family.
Mhm.
It's like a direction, it's a road. It's become a road in our lives. And so
Mhm.
it's like, what if that road turns into a dirt track
Right.
and then it gets overgrown and then there's trees and there's bushes and there's animals and it's all scary and
Uh-huh.
we can't see we can't see the direction down, we can't
Yeah.
see where he's going and he's exploring in the jungle and What if
Right.
it, like, what
There
if
are
that happens?
dragons there. Like,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Mm,
How am I going to feel about that? How am I going to
right.
help? How am I going to guide him? How am I going to be there for
Mm-hmm.
him when I'm freaking out about the
Mm-hmm.
dragons that I see?
Right. Okay.
And he's
So,
like, Mom, they're just dragons. Don't worry about it, And
right.
I'm there going, holy cow,
Yeah.
how am I
But
going to?
you're seeing it though. Like you see the agreements you're making, right?
Yes,
Like the first agreement is like, we need AFL to be safe. And then the next
yes,
agreement is like, if I don't know what it is, then it's not safe. And right. And
yes,
like you're seeing it.
yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm dealing with all of that now, right? I'm
Right.
dealing with myself in
Mm-hmm.
preparation for anything,
Yeah.
for anything
Mm-hmm.
that he brings to the table,
Oh, I just want
because I want that for him. I
yeah.
want I want him to know, I need him to know, well, I don't need it, but I want to give that gift to him that if he brings it to the table, it's going to be okay.
And then with
I
me,
love
I
that.
just don't even ask. I just slap it on the table.
Yeah, but there's a difference between you and Bryn, and I think you've seen it because with Juliet, whatever she slaps on the table, I don't know what it is that,
Mm-hmm.
It's always amazing.
yeah, it's just like, okay,
It's
like I
perfect.
have this trust there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with Bryn, I think it's because he's a boy. I think that's what it
Uh-huh.
is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that there's a little bit of anxiety
Mm.
in me.
Yeah. Well,
You
and
cannot.
sometimes like
Oh,
previous
sorry.
boy behaviors can create that too, you know? I mean, I remember like Owen, he's 11 now at one point, so he's super into like Tesla coils and like
Yeah,
Stirling
right.
engines and all these things. And I remember like
Wow.
he had this little Stirling engine and he's got the alcohol and like the lighter and he's in the kitchen and he's on the count, and I'm standing there and I'm like, yeah, baby, light it. We're fine. Everything's good. Light it, baby, light it. Right. And the kitchen counter set on freaking fire. So
Yeah,
like
right.
because he knocked the alcohol thing over, right? So and it was okay. We're all safe and like nobody like died. And even if we had died, that would be okay too, right? So it's like it depends like where we wanna like how far do we want to go with this, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, I feel like you definitely do get anxious with the things that I put on the table.
Oh, yeah, when she moved out,
Yeah.
when she the first time she
Okay.
said to me, I'm going to Byron Bay, you were 18,
19.
and I
Okay.
wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. I was not ready to hear that she was moving out. I wasn't ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
But
You
we
don't get
got,
anxious anymore? I feel like you still get anxious a little bit. Well, you're really good. I'm not saying that you're anxious all the time. Like when I was telling mum I was going to go to Bali to do my yoga teacher training, I was anxious and she was like, "No, you've got this." So there is a
Uh-huh.
balance, but I feel like sometimes I have to
Mhm.
tell you I've got this, and then other times you have to tell me, "No, Juliet, you've got this."
yeah, but I
Okay.
think I trust you more than Bryn.
Yeah, okay.
I
Well, I'm
Yeah.
also
definitely,
older as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like when I compare, which I probably shouldn't do, but in the past, you at his age and him now,
Yeah, but
I
I
was
didn't.
dealing with you better.
Yeah, but also like I didn't do anything like Bryn does when
I
I grew.
know
I didn't
he
ask.
pushes the envelope.
Yeah, like I was such look, I love 14-year-old me, but I was a boring teenager. Okay? I didn't want to do anything like against the rules. The thing, yeah, like you didn't I didn't
Wow,
push
look at you
your
now.
Yeah.
yeah, look at me now. I was saving up the energy, okay,
That's
for
it.
this time in my life.
Yeah,
Yep.
and Juliet has this, she has an internal compass. This is
Mm-hmm.
what it is. This has come to me. Juliet has an internal compass that her true north is herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings me so much peace
Mm-hmm.
because I know that she will always choose herself in
Mhm.
any situation. If her intuition is telling her, don't go there, don't do that, she won't do it. She'll choose her intuition and herself, and she will talk to herself in that situation.
Mhm.
And that brings me comfort because I know that herself is a pretty great person and that
Thank you.
she will make the right decision. Whereas with Bryn, his true north are his friends
Right.
and how he relates to that group of people in his life. And
Mhm.
so sometimes I think he's very selfless to the point where it's damaging to him.
Mm.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
love his selflessness. I love that he wants to, um, give his friends of himself and be there for them. And, but
Mhm.
I worry that in a situation where it's a choice between his intuition and himself and their friends, he's just going to choose
Mhm.
them. That's what I
Well,
worry about.
but you know what's coming through for me right now?
Yeah,
And I
please
know
tell me.
I know when I say this, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, like you just forgot for a minute.
Yeah,
But this is probably like lessons and learning that his individuated soul has to have. And like we don't even, I mean, some of us do, and as we walk, we remember more and we uncover more, but typically, like at his age, we don't even know like what agreements we're coming in here with.
yeah,
We don't, is there debt? Is there karmic debt? Is there something I'm working out? Is there something I'm supposed to learn? Like we don't remember. We have
yeah,
no clue, you know? And so like trusting that like he is learning exactly what he needs to learn for his own expansion.
yeah,
Yeah. Like he's okay. He's got to learn it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And learning to trust that and let go and see his journey as his mother, but not
Yeah.
interfere with
Yes.
his choices
Yes.
and how he chooses to walk the path.
Yeah.
That is
Yes.
my journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that for you so much because I feel like inside of that space, we also gain deeper trust for
Mm.
the process of things, the process of the
Yeah.
cosmos. Um, I'm like reminded of that song. What are the lyrics? Um, Spirit lead me where my trust has no borders or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would lead me, right?
Yeah.
And like what I mean, is there any deeper space to experience that than like with our children? I mean, no, I really can't think of any, but that's just my experience. Like if I wasn't a mother, then I'm sure I would be able to think of, other really deep spaces
Yeah.
that are comparable. Um, but when my eldest, I cannot tell you, like when my eldest, he outfitted his Honda Civic um as like a car to live in and set out, to travel to he was doing, do you guys have DoorDash in Australia or something like
Yeah.
it? Like Uber Eats or okay. He was
Yeah.
just like going into cities and door dashing and then um like going out and like hiking and tenting and camping and like he's living that way and like all the people that were like saying things to me, like how can you let him do that? And I mean, I'm just like, let him. Let him. He's
Yeah.
20 years old. That's
Yeah.
exactly what he needs to do because it's what he wants to do. And then there was even this episode where like he got really sick and he hit his head and he like conked out on the pavement and he literally had a concussion and he had short-term memory loss and he was like
Oh
4 hours
God.
away in Pennsylvania and he calls me and I had to like send an ambulance because he couldn't remember. Wait, why am I on the phone with you again, mom? Like we kept looping and I'm like, okay, we
Wow.
definitely have like a concussion or something. And I had to drive to Pennsylvania and I'm in the hospital with him and trying to get him out. uh we ended up leaving against medical advice, but that's a whole other story. They wanted to spinal tap him when he had a
Right.
concussion, like a freaking egg on whatever. I'm segueing. Um, so, and even there in that space, like the nurse saying to me, how can you let him do that? And oh, I would never let my 20-year-old, go off and do that. And, and I'm just standing there like empowered in my space and thinking to myself, perfect, beautiful. That's perfect for you. Right. And
Yeah.
this sort of brings us back to the unity thing, right? Like she was expressing a fractal of unity, a fractal of consciousness, right?
Yes.
And I'm over here expressing my fractal of consciousness, and that's totally okay. And the way that him being him and so resolute in his choices, I was so empowered as his mother, supporting him in his choices where, maybe even 5 years ago, I would have felt like sort of like some shame or guilt or like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
I was wrong. Maybe this fractal of consciousness is right. And I'm like this terrible mother. No, there is not even like a tiny shred of that. It was
Yeah.
just like, we're fine, right? Shit happens.
Yeah.
And it took him a couple months and he got out on the road and he went back out, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
Good on him. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really awesome actually that he didn't let that one experience, determine whether or not to go back out there. Like that's
Right.
really, yeah,
Yeah. He
Yep.
didn't allow the fear to get hold of him and
yeah,
yeah, and
No.
deter him, which is amazing.
Yep.
And that's, I think, for me, like that's what I tell myself when the fear is starting to creep in,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm watching Bryn change and grow, and the road is becoming less pronounced in front of us.
Yeah.
um,
The dragons are swooping
yeah.
in.
I'm telling myself that this is the stuff of life. This stuff, not going to a doctor and being told, this is how you should live. Not going to school and being told by a teacher that this is how you should live and this is how you should learn.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff, watching him making his decisions, being there for him as a container, a
Mm-hmm.
safe container of love,
Mm-hmm.
that he can always return to a safe, warm place where he will be accepted. These are
Mm-hmm.
the things that teach us in our lives. These lessons are this is the DNA of
mm,
our existence on this planet and in this
Mm-hmm.
reality
Yeah.
is this stuff. Your son having that concussion and then getting back in the car a few months later and going back out there, that
Mm-hmm.
is the stuff that that nurse can't see. She
Right.
doesn't see it because society has given us a template,
Mm-hmm.
that cookie cutter that we were talking about, that cookie
Mm-hmm.
cutter template that
Yep.
we should all abide by and we shouldn't use as our guide,
Right.
that we believe on some level is keeping us safe.
Yes.
But really, what it's doing, it's a false sense of safety, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, there is no such thing.
Yes.
And that's a
Yes.
scary thought. It's so scary to think that there is no real safety in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Our only
Mm-hmm.
safety really is in ourselves, expanding ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
learning and choosing and being brave in our choices and
Right.
pushing boundaries and figuring out who we are as people and how much
Right.
we can take,
Yeah.
how far we can
Exactly.
go.
Yeah, and I mean, in fact, I would say, when we feel that fear, that's generally, I mean, there are nuances here. Sometimes we're having intuition about something, okay, but generally it's a good sign,
Yeah,
that we're expanding ourselves, you
yeah,
know. So,
yeah.
and I mean,
Not
a
all
lot of
fear is bad.
right. And it's really easy for fear to get hooked into also, because it's like we do have this like malfunction in thinking. We are prone to thought loops and swirling into, the abyss of despair. There are energies and entities around us that piggyback on that and love to feed that and love to hook into that also. We create like egregores with these types of thought loops, tulpas, all of that. I'm going down rabbit holes now, but um,
They
I think
exist
that
though.
like, what's that?
They exist.
Right, they
It's
do. They
it's real.
absolutely,
Yeah, yeah,
it's real. It is
yeah,
100% real. And there are
yeah,
all other types of multidimensional beings and entities that also exist. And I mean, and I've been having a lot of major initiations in this space for like the past, really it started in 2017 for me, but um then things sort of went more covert, but now they're more overt. And I
right.
know that I've been experiencing this, and I've been having experiences with entities and things like that so that I can move into a space of teaching other people around this so that we can have awareness for like when our thoughts are being hijacked, when like if we're in relationships with people who are not self-aware, they can be worked through as well to trigger
Yeah,
us. And so just to bring it back around, this concept of unity, um, having awareness for these things. And really it takes a lot of discipline and self-awareness. Even if the person on the other end doesn't have that self-awareness, we can have it,
yeah.
and we can say, interesting. Is there some type of separation agenda here? Is there some type of chaos or confuse? Not that chaos is always bad, but in some cases, it's causing confusion and discord and that tumultuous drama,
It's sucking up
yeah,
energy and
chaos
time.
drama.
Yeah,
What's that?
and it can suck up your energy and your time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Perfect. Exactly. So that you're distracted and you're not
yeah,
putting your energy where it could, it would have a much larger benefit, right? Things
yes.
like that. So, yeah, just like really sort of keeping a pin, I think, in that perspective. If someone is intentional about, um, just having awareness for separation, narratives, agendas, energies, and wanting to cultivate more connection inside of the individuation, the fractals that are here, and that,
Yeah,
and that's part of this realm, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, and
yeah.
we're nearly at the end of spin search, and we've gone so quick. But I want to just underpin everything that we've spoken about today with this
Mhm.
one thought, and that
Mhm.
is that the binding thread of all of this acceptance and awareness and the individuation of the whole, the cogs in the
Mhm.
machine, all of that stuff,
Yeah.
the fuel and the oil that keeps it all lubricated and going, in my mind, is self love, is the
Yes.
love for self. And this is something that,
And that is unity consciousness.
yes,
Mhm.
because when
Yeah.
this is a lesson that has come huge and hard in my life,
Mhm.
because I always judged when I put myself first or gave myself something that I really wanted, that I
Mhm.
was being selfish.
Right.
And that is actually one of the biggest lies that society tells us.
Such a lie.
Yeah,
Mhm.
when you can give yourself space and peace and whatever that is that you need to function more fully,
Mhm.
um, and it looks different for everybody. And it can
Mhm.
sometimes look really weird. Like my things that give me energy can look so strange to somebody else.
Mhm.
But when I allow myself to say yes to those things, that fuel that gives me the energy to show up in the world and show up for my children and make better
Yeah.
decisions, that
Yeah.
is the permission that I give myself to do that. And that comes from self love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I completely agree. And I emphasize, I put bolded,
Yeah.
italicized, you know, emphasis on all of that. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because to get started and to start walking down that path of awareness and all of that stuff, it takes that kind of like drive within yourself to want to do
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
for yourself
Yeah.
and for others. So
Yep.
when we accept ourselves and when we say, okay, I want to show up, that kind of commitment and self-love is the
Hmm.
journey. That is the commitment that it takes to, well,
Yes. Yes. And we're healing the codependence, right?
yeah,
We are flipping back right side up all the inversions and the programming that we've received that told us what love is, that it's not that at all, and all those
yeah,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mwah!
Wow. What an episode.
I know.
Oh
I
It's
God.
love
so
you guys.
juicy, buttery
So
toast.
juicy. Mm, yummy.
Yummy, yes.
Thank you so much for joining us once again, Michelle. And of course, we're going to ask if you can come on again at
Mm,
some point
yeah,
soon.
Of course. Thank you for always asking me back. I love it. I love it so much. I love you both. And I love always being able to like see you and catch up. And yet
yeah,
at the same time, it's this gorgeous platform that's
yeah,
meaningful in additional ways also.
yeah.
And so I love that. And I love
We
you
love
guys.
you too. Mwah.
Yes.
Thank you for your time and your generosity.
And thank you,
Okay.
everybody, for watching.
We'll see you
And we'll
next
see you
week.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.